from the group and so on. Okay. Okay, yeah, better. So let's get started. That's the MPLS session. So if you are not looking for MPLS, you are definitely in the wrong room. Okay, the node well, as usual. So some administrator. So of course, please log into the on-site tool, especially for collecting the blue sheets. We have also who's taking minutes, in fact? That's a good question. Any minute taker?
I will be taking minutes. I'm volunteering.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All the other stuff is as usual. So we have also a wiki and a GitHub where you can find additional information. We have 3 presentations today. So we have, I think, a bit of time left if there is anything else. So there was already a question, I think, in the chat, who's the new chair. So we have a new chair. Tony is our new chair, and Adrian is stepping down after Brisbane. And I think we have also a new AD, which is Jim, and Andrew is stepping down. So working group status. So we have 3 reports. All are editorial. There's one liaison statement from ITUT study group 11. It was initially sent to ops area, and it's addressing a model for optimized trace route. And we have got this for consideration, and there is also a liaison response drafted, which was discussed on the MPLS mailing list and which was also sent out right before the meeting. I think 15 was the Friday. Yeah, not much new here. So we have a discussion on the SFL control document later on. Yeah, I mean, also not much new here. The bold blue documents are on the agenda for today. So it's basically the first nibble and also the M&A use cases document. We have a new working group document, which was adopted right before the IETF. That's the PARSIT. And we have also a bunch of documents which were expired a long time ago. And we are just in the process of cleaning up that. There's 4 documents left. Yeah, here nothing new. Yeah, that's a list of the, I will just skip that. So there's one thing about the SFL drafts. There's, it was, one of the documents was blocked by a reference to the SFL control draft. There was basically, sorry, a change in text, and the change was also approved, and the document is now in RFC editor queue to unblock. The SFL control document, there's working group last call was in 2021, and also went to IETF last call in November last year. There was one problem found by Stuart, and there are basically 2 approaches to solve this problem. One is to reduce the scope to exclude the multi-point-to-point stuff, or to return it to the working group for a fix. At the moment, there is a formal poll on the mailing list running to abandon this draft, and this poll, I think today is the 19th, ends today. So if you have an opinion on that please go to the mailing list. And that's from my side. Adrian, Tony, Tarek, anything to add from your side? Nothing, I think.
Nothing from my side.
Okay. So then we can go to the first presentation. Sorry. Where's my browser? Sorry, my browser is gone. Here. So you have two presentations.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I'll be here back to back. Okay. So this is update on first nibble. First, you can realize that there is a change in terminology. For many years, we were referring to this construct as MPLS first nibble, and discussing among authors realized that, well, that's not technically accurate, because this first nibble does not belong to MPLS label stack. It's a post-stack first nibble. Next slide. So that's what have changed. Terminology. Oh, yes, of course. Thank you. Terminology. What will updates to 4928 we extracted into a separate section, restructure on post-stack, and that will be interesting to discuss later on, because we received the feedback from Ayana. Thank you to Ayana. And security considerations. So let's go in details. Terminology, as I mentioned. So their first nibble is not really a part of MPLS label stack. So thus, referring to it as MPLS first nibble might be misleading. In fact, it's a post-stack first nibble, because it immediately follows their bottom of the stack label element. So thus, we'll changing to terminology throughout the document, referring to this as a post-stack first nibble. Then, consequently, following this logic, first nibble is part of post-stack header that includes post-stack first nibble and immediately follows the bottom of the stack label stack element. Also, it's important, as we discussed, to identify what we are achieving with this work. Not only to create Ayana registry for the post-stack first nibble, but deprecate a particular behavior. So here we provide in the document, in the terminology section, their definition of deprecation or interpretation of what deprecation means that would be used throughout this document. So you can read it, but currently we don't use normative language in this document. So as you see, there are two consecutive questions. First, do we use a normative language in this document, in this definition? And if, regardless of their use of a normative language, is it should or must? Of course, the difference will be only important, in my opinion, if it's a normative. So whether it's a recommendation or that is a requirement. I think Adrian has a comment, so let's take a comment now.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. And you're right to call this out. And I think that the difference is if you're deprecating a behavior or deprecating the setting of that nibble. So for example, if you're saying when you see the value 0, 1 in that nibble, people used to do this, but they don't anymore. That's probably lowercase, but if you're saying implementations used to set 0.1 and now 0.1 is deprecated, then I think you're saying new implementations must not.
Okay, so jumping a little bit forward, okay, let's probably wait till we'll get to exactly what we propose to deprecate, and then it might be clear whether use of normative language here and whether it's a recommendation or requirement.
Okay, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, hang on.
I don't know where
Yeah,
to
yeah,
point.
not
Should I
quite.
point at you or
No,
should
no,
I?
I think you have to point at me, but just.
Yeah, okay, at the computer. Okay, not really at you, at computer. Okay, so updates extracted into separate section to make it clear. And what we identify that there are two updates to RFC 4928. So currently, it's required that application depending on a packet delivery restrict nibbles to 0 and 1. So as we know that it's not been the case because there are some other uses, their values of post-stack first nibble being used by different protocols. So thus we're saying that post-stack first nibble other than 4 or 6. That constitutes, only 4 and 6 constitutes IP payload. And another, that's where we'll come to what's being deprecated. As we learned through the history, making control word in Ethernet pseudowire optional caused some grief and pain. So thus, what we want to deprecate is that behavior that allows for use of non-IP payload without post-stack header. And that you can see in the updated on second paragraph, so I'll read it out loud. A new document is to be published to obsolete MPLS encapsulations without post-stack header of non-IP payload. So that, again, something that is a forward action that we'll take. So after this document being published, this document only deprecates such behavior. But the intention and recommendation of authors is to continue this work to obsolete such behavior. And that's why we provide the definition of what deprecates is here, because there is a distinction between deprecated behavior and obsolete behavior. So now we can come back to thinking about whether this definition uses normative language, and if normative language, would it be recommendation or requirement? Okay, let's take comments as they come. Tarek, please.
Thanks, Greg. This is Tarek, and with the chair's hat off. So on the next slide, you are deprecating a behavior of using that heuristic to identify the flow using the first nibble, if it is 4 and 6. And you're saying we shouldn't, LSRs should not, I think it was the next slide then, not
Yes.
this one. Right here. We are deprecating, relying on the first nibble to identify a flow. Is that
yes?
What we? So what is the alternative that we're recommending? Should we not, state down this is the way to identify an MPLS flow for LSRs? I know that you're intending to do that, but did you mention that in the draft?
Yes, in the draft, yeah, because so this is, I try to keep their amount of information here limited given the time. So yes, in a draft, we refer to existing entropy sources in MPLS, such as entropy label and pseudowire FET label. So, and that these are recommended.
Recommended or must? I guess that's again back to your.
Okay, they must use other sources, and it's either entropy label or pseudowire FET label.
Okay.
Because as we stress, so in earlier versions, we already stressed that the value of post-stack first nibble cannot be reliably used to deduce the type of a payload. Because in MPLS, the type of a payload defined by the context label.
We do have Kiriti in the queue, but
yes,
he's not close to the mic yet.
I am at the mic right now.
Okay.
So when I first wrote this, it was a question of should we make this a should or a must? So two things. One is, should it be a should or a must? I feel it should be a must, or must not use. And you can't say must use the FAT label or entropy label, but those are the preferred ways. But you must not use the nibble. The second thing is there's going to be legacy equipment that does this. So we have to be very careful what we write in terms of how this draft goes forward. We can't absolutely mandate that you can't do this. You can say you shouldn't do this further or you must not do this further, but you have to take into account that there's legacy equipment that has it. So those are the two things I'd say to Tarek's comment.
Yes, basically that's, if we look at, you're absolutely correct. And that's why we differentiate between deprecate and obsolete.
Yes.
So the deprecate is, as it's written here in definition, is in new implementations or deployed in deployments. So yes, it's a more forward-looking deprecation. Obsolete, yes, has more ramification and does require more discussion and consideration. And that's why we believe that for the sake of expediency progressing this document, so we separate these two stages and steps.
Yeah.
Okay, Kiriti, if you can lower your hand so it would not be confusing. Thank you. Okay, so that's what we have now. Now, the part of IANA registry. And I appreciate Jeffrey pointing out that that idea was not clearly communicated why we changed it. And we received feedback from IANA, and thank you to IANA for generously describing 3 options. We'll be discussing these options and communicate with the group about which way we'll go. But at least it's clear that has to be changed, because IANA told us that they cannot create a registry like that. So what we wanted to highlight here is, because earlier version listed a single value of post-stack nibble, and then associated with it all their protocols that use it. And that might be not clear enough. So our intention was that to list applications and then associate the value that this application uses. But in this specific format, IANA cannot create this registry. So they offered 3 options that we'll need to discuss, and we'll come to the group with our recommendation before we'll do the next update. And that's basically it. So so here's the security consideration that states that we request a new IANA registry, and there are no other security issues. Yes, Kiriti, please.
One thing I would suggest strongly, we do have the same number, 0 and 1, used multiple ways depending on which application uses it. From a hardware point of view, we could suggest that in the future, you have, for all the other numbers, you can't use 4 and 6, but for all the other numbers, 3 and 5 and everything above 7, you have a single registry for that. So yes, we have to document what the existing thing is, and we have to do it in a way that IANA can deal with. But we could say in the future, there's a single registry for MFN or whatever PFN numbers that you don't have to have context of which application. Is it beer? Is it pseudowires? Is it DetNet? Because I think there's enough numbers that you can do something meaningful with. So that becomes the way that you go forward. But for the existing stuff, we have to go with what IANA says.
Yeah, actually, I believe that their intention is to encourage new applications to use 0 and 1, not to allocate new values.
Okay.
And because effectively, again, as we are stating that we're discouraging deducing the type of a payload solely based on the value of post-stack first nibble, that means that it doesn't matter if everybody uses 0 and 1, because they can use 0 and 1 as differentiating between their data payload and OEM for that application. So that seems to be sufficient. Some applications decided differently, but that's water under the bridge. But in the forward-looking, and again, given that we have very scarce space of available values here, so probably in the future when somebody asks for consideration, the more conservative we will be, probably will be prudent policy.
Okay. We can discuss offline.
Yes, of course. Okay, so I don't see who is next.
Adrian.
Yes.
Yeah, Greg, I think you've actually got a security consideration that you should mention, which is that you're fixing a security hole by deprecating behaviors that may incorrectly work out what the next what the payload is. You are fixing an issue.
That's an interesting perspective, and thank you. I'm not sure that was a security problem. It was more operational problem, but yeah, let's think about it from that angle and put some text. Thank you.
Jeffrey
Yes,
Down
Jeffrey.
from Juniper. I also have the comment related to that. In fact, I'm surprised I'm here talking about security considerations, because normally it's always a headache for me to write about this section. But anyway, indeed, this draft does not only talk about a new registry. You were talking about the deprecating behaviors. So I think you should talk about those things as well.
Okay.
So basically what Adrian talked about already. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Thanks.
then two suggestions, stronger than one, of course. Thank you. Okay, so would
No, I think I have to change.
Yeah, so the next steps, welcome comments. Thank you for your comments here at the mics, and we'll continue discussion, and we'll come back with a proposed update to the IANA registry. And after that, we'll see when it will get to the working group last call ready state. Okay, so now this is update on use cases for MPLS network actions. And the discussion in Prague was already forward-looking, where these changes that were applied to the document were indicated, proposed, and we have not received any opposition. So that's an update of what have been implemented in the document and what the document now includes. So it includes 3 network actions: no further fast reroute, in situ OEM, and network slicing and network resource partitioning. Other use cases that were previously included in the document and have been discussed, but so far have not received acceptance by the working groups that participated in chartering open design team on MPLS network actions. They were they remain for informational, and they are in amendment. So although actually, again, even though this is informational document, we decided it will be for historical benefit to have this use cases included, but since they are not really affecting their solution that to be discussed and accepted, hopefully, by their community, so they were not in the main part of the document. So thus, only 3 use cases so far been identified that require have some requirements for M&A solution. And that's basically it. So we believe that document is stable in its current form, reflects their consensus, hopefully. Something that probably working group chairs want to verify for the normal process. And if working group agrees that the current document is ready for the working group last call, so we'll support it through the process. Thank you.
Thanks. Who is next?
Hello, everyone. I'm Yao Liu from ZTE. As you can see from the title, it is not actually an MPLS draft, but it is kind of related. So thanks for giving me the chance to present it here. So it is about extending ICMPv6 for SRv6 related information validation. And as we know, unlike normal IPv6 addresses, SRv6s can be related with more and more extra information, such as VPN, eVPN services, SRv6 endpoint behaviors, flags algorithms, service functions, and etc. And for SRMPLS or MPLS, the MPLS labels can also be related with many extra FEC information. And the mechanism for the verification between data plane and control plane are well defined in the FEC validation procedure in LCPP PIN. But for SRv6, there's no similar mechanisms. There's only PIN for data plane, connect, ping and trace for data plane connection and validation. So based on the above considerations, we take examples from FEC validation in MPLS as LSP ping, and this draft defines ICMPv6 messages to verify the data plane against the control plane for SRv6. And two new ICMPv6 messages are defined for the validation request and the reply. And for the validation request, there is one or more validation information objects carrying the information to be verified, just like FEC sub-TLVs. And in the validation reply, there's a code indicating the validation result. And here's a brief processing procedure. And it is just like pinging an SRv6 SID. So first, the source node sends a validation request with SRv6 SID to be verified, set as a last segment. And in the picture, node C is a target node. After receiving the validation request, it verified information encoded in the request, and it will send the validation reply with return code set based on the validation request. And here's just a brief procedure. And we presented this draft in spring, last IETF. Here's some feedbacks and comments we got. The first is we got some feedback saying that in MPLS, whenever there's new type of FEC information, if you want to do the FEC validation, you have to define new FEC sub-TLVs. And so you need to upgrade your device. So some people think it's not very implementation friendly. And so introducing similar mechanisms in SRv6 may lead to similar problems. And we got some response saying that although LSP ping is widely used, but not the FEC validation part, and the requirement for validation is not that strong in their network. We are not sure about this point. So our question is validation between the data plane against control plane required for troubleshooting in the real network, regardless the data plane type, MPLS or SRv6. And we are suggested to get feedbacks and experience from MPLS, since MPLS experts have been doing this for many, many years. So yeah, we request feedbacks and comments, any feedback and comments from MPLS experts, and we are still seeking requirements from the network. Is the validation against the data plane against the control plane needed in your network, regardless of the data plane type? If it's in your MPLS work, we can analyze it if it is still valid in your for SRv6. And welcome cooperation. Thank you.
Tarek, you have a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Well, back to your question, I think you're asking from MPLS experience. In fact, we have in MPLS we have both modes. We have the the control and data plane validation being done in a full descriptive FEC, and then we have the nil FEC concept where we just do a minimal data plane kind of check on the egress node. And in fact, we have a document that we pushed to ISG recently, defining such a generic nil FEC mechanism. And as you can also, go through the document and see the use cases where it's applicable. We found that it could be useful in cases where the initiator of the ping or the OAM request does not know the full control plane FAQ. So it would just initiate a nil FAQ kind of verification.
Thanks, Tarek. I'm aware of the new FAC draft. So as for my understanding, it is a way when you don't want to do the FAC validation. But as my observation, there are still many new FAC subtier ways defined to do the validation. So, yeah, I wonder if there are your requirements. So in your network, so we can analyze it. So we can see what is it needed for SRv6 as well. So.
Matthew Bocci, Nokia. So I'm a little bit unclear about what you're verifying against what, because in LSP ping and trace with regular MPLS, you're doing a kind of, you're checking the binding really between the FEC and the label signaled by the control plane. You're saying, is this label programmed at a particular LSR for this FEC? But here it's an SRv6 SID, which is just like an IPv6 address that's just in the data plane or forwarding in the data plane. So you can use, to test that it's been programmed there, you can just use ICMP ping and trace. So I'm not sure what exact, what are you actually verifying?
Let me take an example. MPLS we have for VPN. So we have FAC validations for the MPLS labels against the VPN information you advertise via BGP. And in SRv6, we also have similar mechanisms. So you advertise SRv6 with VPN or eVPN information via BGP. And you may want to do the same thing. So you may want to verify this information. Is this SRv6 SID really related with the eVPN information or some other?
Okay, so you're talking about the service context for that
Yep.
SID rather than the underlying. So in an underlying SRv6 network, you're not talking about node SIDs and adjacency SIDs and so on.
For node SIDs and adjacency SIDs, not just for connection check, I think. But without besides the node and adjacency, I have some backup slides. So we defined some examples. So you can relate your SRv6 with besides end and next. You have some endpoint behaviors. For example, for SRSFC, you define some behaviors for the SR proxies that and you have prefix IGP algorithm, and you have the VPN prefixes. So kind of these things.
Okay. So just putting my best chair's hat on for the best working group. If your primary motivation is to be able to do things like do connectivity verification for SRv6 based services where you've got all this other context information like in an eVPN, maybe you should present this in BESS as well at some point, because we already have I guess it's an RFC now for doing LSP ping and trace for eVPN for an MPLS case. So maybe,
yes, I've read that.
And there's also an RFC for SRv6 services.
Okay, so sure, we can present it. So we just, if you have requirements for that, contact us. So because we are still finding who needs this mostly. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Anything else? Tarek, Adrian?
Yes, I wanted to take a moment. I was supposed to do that at the beginning and thank Adrian for stepping in and helping in the interim after Loa had had to leave. And thanks, Adrian. I know you made a big dent, and thanks for setting the examples. I also want to thank Andrew. It's been a pleasure working with you, and hopefully we'll continue to work with you in the future. I'll give it back to you, Nick and Tony.
Yeah, there's a comment from Andrew, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to the chairs and the working group. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. And Jim, unfortunately, the new AD for MPLS couldn't be here due to a conflict, but welcome to him. And yeah, I wish you guys all the best, and I will not be a stranger. I will be around. So thanks very much. Oh, and just a very special thanks to Adrian for his rather short tenure as MPLS chair. Thank you very much. And welcome to Tony Lee.
Okay, thanks. Also from our side to everyone. And I think that's it for today. Next session will be in about 3 to 4 months in Vancouver. Thank you.
See you there. Thank you.
Fast.